Yes, go through my process.
And go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Leeper. I'm the City Councilor for Kitchissippi Ward, and we're here to take a look at the site plan application that has been made for the corner of Sherbourne and Redwood and Byron in those sixplexes there. I guess the only thing I would emphasize for tonight's meeting, I'm going to ask the builder to take us through what it is that they're proposing, but this is not a rezoning. So what that means is that the developer, the builder has permission to build what they want to build. It's within the zoning, and the city is not really in a position to say no to the development itself. We're in what's called a site plan application process, which really focuses on the technical details. Now, there can be some changes to the design through the course of site plan, and so I'm keen to hear the feedback on some of the technical aspects of the site. But the basics of it, building these new buildings, demolishing the others, is, sorry, I'll let the developer take you through that. But that is something that they already have approval to do. Steve Gauthier is here tonight. He's with the city. He's the city planner who's going to ultimately make a recommendation to either approve or not the site plan. These generally don't go to a vote. If there's something that is a real showstopper, there is the potential that it might go to planning committee for a vote, but on site plan, they generally do not. And of course, Fiona Mitchell is here with me as well. Fiona, I'm sure many of you know, she is the my assistant who works on planning files in the ward, very busy person. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to turn that over to Fiona just to give a brief overview of how the evening will go.
Thank you, Jeff. So do you want to keep it normal format right now? Okay, perfect. So thanks everyone for joining tonight. You will notice we're in the webinar format, which means you don't have video or microphone access at the moment. The way things are going to proceed tonight is very shortly, the applicant's going to make a high-level presentation, no longer than 25 minutes, if that, about the application, and then we're going to move into a Q&A. So if you bring your cursor to the bottom of your screen, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, you should see a Q&A icon, and that's how you can communicate with us tonight. So you can type in a question, and when we go through the Q&A, I will read them out loud, and I'll also hit a button so that you can also read them in text. And once they've been responded to, they will move into the answered area, and you should be able to see those. You can also use the Q&A though, if you have a question about the format or whatever, you can use that and I'll be able to see it. The chat function is disabled, so the Q&A is the best way to reach out to me if there's something you want to get my attention to, or if you have a question. As well, we are recording this. It's going to go on YouTube probably towards the end of the week. So if any of your neighbors have missed this session and have some questions, you can definitely send them the YouTube link. As well, as Jeff mentioned, we have Steve Gauthier here tonight. I'll just throw his email address into the chat. Steve, after this meeting, Steve is the person who you'll want to send formal comments to, as well as to our office. So I always encourage comments to go to both the lead planner as well as our office so we can stay up to speed. And as Jeff said, he's the one, the file lead at the city's end who's going through this application. So I think that's it for housekeeping. So with that, I will turn it over to Kyla to introduce herself and Jordan.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll just make sure I'm unmuted. Okay. So thank you and welcome. We appreciate you joining us this evening. I'd like to say a quick thank you to Councillor Leeper and Fiona as well, and to Steve Gauthier for being here. My name's Kayla Blakely. I'm a planner with Novatech. We're working with Concord Properties for the planning approvals on this development. So I'm joined by Jordan Tenants as well. So as Fiona mentioned, we'll provide a quick overview of the project. We've prepared a brief presentation And afterwards, we're happy to answer any questions. So I will share my screen. I will try.
Let me know if you're having any issues.
Possibly, I might.
Should be at the bottom of the screen, a green share screen button.
Oh, yes. It's noted that I need to give permission, so I think I've done that. I'll try it again.
There you go.
How's that? Okay, good. I will put it in the slideshow format. Can we still see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, excellent. I'll get started. So we're here tonight discussing a proposed low-rise residential development for the site that's bound by Sherbourne, Redwood, Byron, and Keenan. I'm sure a number of you here this evening are quite familiar with this site. By way of a bit of context and background, the site was developed in the 1950s originally as a residential complex that consists of 9 low-rise apartment buildings. You might know this as Byron Estates. The surrounding area has a diversity of uses and building forms. And the popular Byron Linear Park is adjacent to the north, and further north is Richmond Avenue. These photos provide a bit more context in terms of existing conditions. So on the subject site itself, there are 2-story apartments, each containing 6 units. There's an existing access from Redwood Avenue that's used as a private laneway for the development. Some of the photos along the bottom show adjacent uses. So to the left, there's a photo of adjacent similar low-rise apartment uses. In the middle, you'll see a 6-story apartment that is the only other existing development within the same block. And then to the left is just a view looking south. You'll see that the neighborhood transitions to more low-rise residential. So this map is a schedule from the Cleary and New Orchard secondary plan. It shows the subject site as within the limits of that study area, and it's designated as mid-rise park frame. So the mid-rise park frame policies contemplate mid-rise forms. So in this case, 5 stories or up to 6 stories along Byron. That's intended to be supportive of the future transit. I'm sure we're all aware of the future LRT that's coming through the extension, which I believe construction is underway for that west extension. So in terms of zoning, the site has a R4, which is a residential 4th density zone. The intent is to maintain a mixed building form and residential character. So the zone permits residential uses ranging from detached dwellings to low-rise apartments. In the case of the subject site, the low-rise apartments are permitted with a maximum height of 11 meters, which we generally associate with 3 stories. So I'll get into a bit of detail of the proposal. I guess start by providing some more details on existing. So as I mentioned, the site's an existing residential complex. Each building contains 6 units, so there's a total of 54 units on site currently. There's a number of attached garages and surface parking areas, so they provide a total of 72 parking. As mentioned, access is from Redwood Avenue. And so as part of this proposal, 2 of the existing 9 buildings are to be removed. So there would be 42 units remaining. So in terms of the proposed development, it involves 3 new infill buildings that will be fronting onto Sherbourne Avenue, or Road, sorry. Each of the 3 buildings are 3 stories in height. The 2 larger buildings will contain 24 units, and the smaller is to contain 10 units. There is a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units that's worked into the design. The total development, the complex, once construction is completed, will accommodate 100 units. So that's proposed and existing combined. There's additional surface parking to be constructed along the north of the proposed buildings. And so that there'll be 68 parking spaces. So more or less an equivalent to what exists today. There's no changes proposed to the access or any of the parcels that front onto Redwood or Byron. Any kind of site alteration and works are to be focused along Sherbourne. And as a note, while the secondary plan, it contemplates the future development with more mid-rise building forms, it was intended to design according to the existing zoning that's in place today, so that the proposed keeping it a low-rise form was more appropriate in the context today. I've included the floor plans just for information. They show a bit of the layout. I would also note the bicycle parking and garbage for the buildings are to be internal. So there will be separate direct access from the rear for each building. More typical floor plans. The building elevations. So the architectural design of the proposed buildings is really intended to resemble what exists on site today. So that's using similar masonry colors and details, cornice lines. And then you'll see the uppermost story is lighter in material to provide that transition between the buildings on site. That might be lower. This shows the landscaping plan that's proposed for the site. So making all efforts to retain the existing street trees. We know they're very valuable along this streetscape, so that the boxes around the trees indicate existing trees that are to be retained and protected. So that's the protection fencing. There's also a few supplemental trees, similar maple, oak, just to fill in some of the landscaping and plantings. This again is the tree conservation, so showing a number of the trees being retained and protected. There's a few that might conflict with construction or which are in poor condition to be removed. And that's why it's been supplemented with other new plantings. Again, that touches a bit on the intent of the design to match materials, roof lines, fenestration that's seen across the site. Some more perspective. And I believe I will end on that note. Yeah, I think that covers our overview, so I'd be happy to pass it back to the Q&A session now.
Okay, thank you so much. So far, I only have 2 questions, so if you've been thinking about a question, feel free to put it in now.
Fiona, I just note Councillor Kavanagh has joined us.
Okay, sorry, give me 1 second and I will promote Councillor Kavanagh to a panelist. Okay, I've done that now. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, perfect. So first question, will there be future developments on this site once this development is complete?
I can speak to that. So at the corner along Sherbourne Avenue, the intensification that we proposed is all of that is going to happen. We did speak to, for full transparency, we did speak to the planning department about a potential mid to high rise development at the corner of Redwood and Byron. But again, that would be consistent with the new secondary plan, and we haven't begun planning. We haven't begun planning for that project yet.
Okay, thank you. Can you please tell us again the number of new parking spaces and how it compares to the number of existing parking spaces?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I will flip back to the site plan so that today there's a total of about 72 parking spaces within the attached garages or just surface parking. So once development is complete, some of the existing attached garages will be removed, but that will make way for more surface parking, so that in comparison there's 72 existing today and 68 will be provided once construction's completed. That is much in excess of what the zoning bylaw requires. So we're definitely, with the transit coming in, we're confident that there'll be, I guess, sufficient parking for the tenants and the visitors.
Right now, just to add to Kayla's point, the garages actually aren't occupied by parking spaces. They're used as storage. So there's six or oh spots that aren't currently used for parking. So improving the ratio.
Okay, thank you. When do you anticipate demolition will begin? I live in one of the buildings that will be demoed, and I'm understandably curious about the timeline.
I've spoken to the owners about this, and we also did circulate a letter to the councillor's office. They aren't planning on proceeding with this project for at least 3 to 5 years. But when we do have a firm schedule, there'll be at least 1 year's notice to those tenants so that they can make arrangements.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up to the parking question, is the parking all above ground surface parking?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. A comment, more trees may be needed in front of building C, 483 Sherbourne. So we can take that into consideration. How will increased parking needs be addressed? Existing apartment residents already park overnight on Redwood.
I can speak to that. So right now, with the new units that are coming up, where the owners are seeing, and as a landlord in the area as well, the owners are seeing, and I'm as well seeing that less and less tenants are requiring parking. So with this project, we did consider parking as an important element because we didn't want spillover onto the streets. So I think right now we're I think we well exceed the parking ratio by 50%. And by the time these buildings are completed, which again is give or take 3 to 5 years, I don't foresee any parking shortage or any excess spillover onto the street that's going to negatively impact the community or the neighborhood.
Jordan, it's going to be important when these go in that your tenants, your prospective tenants, be told while they're being shown the units and chatting with you, that parking is very limited. And one of the things that I and some of the Urban Caucus councillors are really concerned about is that tenants are going in thinking that there is available street parking, and then they call our offices when we have things like winter daytime bans, overnight parking bans. They can't get a street permit. The parking is getting more and more crowded. So when you're talking to prospective tenants, or when the owners are talking to prospective tenants, it's going to be really critical that people move in understanding that it's going to be very difficult to find parking in the neighborhood.
I totally agree.
I'll send you the letter we sent to landlords.
Okay.
And on a similar note, Redwood Ave is a one-way street with infractions being very common. With the increase in units and resulting increase in traffic, what considerations will be given to traffic calming measures on Redwood?
I guess to speak to that, it's maintaining the similar circulation and flow through the site, use of the existing laneway. The net increase in unit didn't actually trigger a requirement of the city for a full transportation impact assessment. So those kind of items weren't looked at in detail, just given the net increase, considering some of the units to be removed in comparison to the new units. So we could definitely bring that back to our team and see what kind of measures might be appropriate.
Thank you.
Sorry, Teresa may want to weigh in on this as well, but Redwood is going to be closed at Byron. Like, that should stop some of the cut-through traffic that we're seeing. I have to pull up the plans on that, but the whole transportation in this area is probably going to change as a result of the LRT, and I think you're going to start to see some different patterns that will need to be addressed. Some streets are going to need to be addressed with traffic calming measures as well, but that's probably part of a bigger discussion than just this site plan.
Yeah, I agree as well. We're not, despite the intensification and the number of units being added, the parking situation isn't going to be, it's not like we're doubling the parking. So I don't think the impact is going to be so astronomical that there'd be a massive congestion compared to what there is right now.
And there's a similar comment on that topic that I'll just read out loud since we're on this topic. I second the question about traffic calming. Currently, amount and speed of cut through traffic is problematic. Talking about cut through on Redwood, not Byron. Noted.
I think it's just been noted though that it's going to be closed off, right? So.
Yes.
I will share the comments with our transportation engineers.
Okay. I like my apartment because there's green space in front, and I understand that some green space will naturally disappear. It looks like there is extra green space left though that can be built on in the future, or is this the maximum size building footprint on the land?
That is the maximum size footprint on the land. There are no plans to do any more development on that land. Those existing 6-unit buildings on Sherbourne are going to stay there. It wouldn't make sense to take those down. And I think the green space and the development configuration now is, I think, an attractive one that sort of I think the development complements that, and it's going to give that green space more usage. And frankly, that green space sort of makes the development really. It's something that we're all really happy with because you don't often get that.
And there's comments and questions along the similar vein, so I'll just read it all at once. Once permission is granted, can the number of units change, say, to 40 units or so? I understand this has been able to happen in the past, but have rules changed so that number of units in the proposal is what will be built? And then if the zoning changes in the next few years, allowing more floors to the building, for instance, does that impact the current plan for 3 floors?
So I think given our zoning rights right now, there isn't a cap on the number of units we can build, but the proposal that we have right now is what we're going to build. And if there is going to be an adjustment to the units, which I think there might be, it's going to be a downshift because given the changing market in terms of rental demand, we do have some smaller units in the larger buildings that I think we want to amalgamate into another unit, which would downshift the buildings on the ends from 24 to 23. But what you see is you're not going to get any more than what we presented here on the floor plan and what you see on the site plan. So I can commit to that and confirm that.
I could add, we seek the site plan approval based on the number of units proposed, and the city has their site plan control bylaw in place. I believe if we were to come back in the future to propose additional units, it would actually trigger an amendment to this approval, so there'd be a separate process for that.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Do all 3 of the new buildings each have interior bike parking?
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
And garbage.
And on that note, it was mentioned there will be internal waste storage. Does that mean existing outdoor/open dumpsters will be removed?
Some, not all. There are garbage enclosures at Keenan and Redwood, and then again at Byron and Redwood. But on our proposed site plan, we did propose constructing an enclosure to sort of clean that area up and conform with the current city guidelines and bylaws. So that would be an improvement on the existing condition, which that is something we're gladly and happy to do.
Okay. Are there any plans to make the buildings more environmentally friendly?
So right now, the buildings that we're proposing follow conventional construction, and all of the conventional building practices nowadays are efficient. They are there's as little impact on the environment as almost you can get with the construction that's going on now. For example, we have these buildings will have ICF insulated foundations. They're going to have a high efficiency boiler system. They're going to be highly efficient air conditioning units, and the circulation units are also going to be efficient. And I mean, using today's practices, the impact on the environment compared to older buildings or compared to buildings that were built in the past is night and day. And
okay, thank you. Is there any type of help/assistance for existing tenants to find a new home?
so I know the owners have a number of rentals in the area, and they range in unit types. So I can't imagine they wouldn't help those tenants relocate and help them move to another apartment, or whether it's on that site or whether it's another property within the area. So like I said, when there's a schedule in place and notice goes out, I can't imagine the owners of Byron rental properties would not help those tenants in any way they could.
Okay, thank you. Two similar questions. So just a clarifying question from what you said earlier, Jordan. Can you please clarify the timeline again? Is it 3 to 5 years before demolition will begin, or 3 to 5 years until completion? And then on a similar vein, what is the planned construction timeline?
So it's 3 to 5 years for the start date, and assuming you do all buildings at the same time, the smaller building in the center would likely be 12 months from start to finish, and the buildings on the end 14 to 15 months to finish those ones. But again, it is start time. Start date is 3 to 5 years. And again, to reiterate, there'd be at least 1 year notice once we firm schedules.
Okay, thank you. Okay. A follow-up comment from earlier comment, we are glad to see the number of parking spots is not increasing. More parking equals more cars. So noted. And then another follow-up from earlier, need to clarify, Byron is going to be closed off. People will cut through Redwood / Keenan. Okay, so that's been noted as well. Sorry, questions are popping up as I'm reading them, and then it moves things around. Has there been any consideration for moving the Redwood access elsewhere? Sherbourne and Byron have little to no residential buildings fronting, while Redwood has 12. There is heavy traffic the wrong way at Redwood and Keenan because of the Redwood access. Would it be possible to use the entrance near Sherbourne and Byron and block off Redwood access?
Maybe Kayla, did you want to take that one? Redwood's closed. It's going to be closed.
I was going to comment again, these kind of things that would normally be looked at from a transportation engineering weren't really explored. I know typically the city's engineers would prefer access from the least, I guess the road that has the least volume of traffic. So that I think from that perspective, access from Sherbourne may not be as desirable, but
and then again, everything I hear tonight, I will discuss with the transportation engineer. As Kyla is saying, of course, if driveway is to be located or traffic is to be directed to the busiest of the street, that's likely would not be a scenario that we would be supportive of.
Doug, I know Fiona's capturing this and Steve is capturing this. I'm interested in what you're saying there, and I'm going to pursue this further with Steve and the developer.
But for the sake of the conversation, someone else has commented, Sherbourne is already very busy. Access should stay on Redwood.
These are never easy.
And Doug says, thanks. Is there anything the landlord can do to mitigate residents entering Redwood in the wrong direction in order to access the parking lot? This is currently a trend observed by residents who live across the street from the parking lot access.
I think I'll take that question back to the owners, and if you don't mind, I can submit a written answer to the councilor's office on that.
Okay, thank you. Just checking that tenants of buildings that aren't being demolished will not be required to move for construction purposes.
Yeah, they absolutely won't be required to move for construction purposes. if you like to sleep in during the framing, it won't be pleasant. But other than that, there should be not much disruption.
Jordan, how much excavation is there for these?
So we're doing 3.5-story buildings, and as you can see, when we had those renderings posted up, that the basement is out of the ground. So the excavation is not going to require blasting. There also isn't much rock there for what we're digging. So we're going to be, if we do encounter any bedrock, it'd be hoe rammed and be very little. But again, we're only going 9 feet. So,
yeah. So that's
so it's not. It's a very shallow excavation.
So
Once in this area that you see it going up.
Yeah, this won't be as disruptive as many of them have been.
No, framing will be.
It's mostly dirt. Framing's not fun, but it's not.
Yeah.
Not hole ramming.
And as long as the trades can be respectful with radios and chats and stuff like that, we hear some concerns about that. So yeah.
Yeah, we usually have. I think now is there more often now. You see pre-construction meetings, and all the stakeholders in the area usually chime in, and all that stuff is addressed, and everyone meets one another, and we do our best to. Construction is never fun, especially in your neighborhood, but we always do our best to make sure that the process is the best we can make it.
And yeah, on that note, Jeff, will you ask for a pre-construction meeting as a site plan condition for this one?
I think it's yes.
Yeah, and then I know it's not a lot of excavation, but we'll also talk. I'm not sure whether or not this one's going to require the crossing guard that I ask of some of the bigger projects. I mean, it's not the long excavation and long pours that we see with the tall towers. But yeah, no, I'll be asking for a pre-construction meeting in the site plan.
Perfect. So when we'll put it'll be a site plan condition, and whenever the builder is ready to move forward, we'll hold a community meeting. And usually, if our office is running it, the applicant will go through the details of the construction, concrete, timeline information, as well as disseminate some contact information. We'll make that a condition so it can flow to if it's happening in the future in which we're not around, who knows. Okay, would there be any rooftop access to be used as a common area with tables/chairs for the tenants? This is an excellent question in the COVID era.
There will not be, no.
Okay. Sherbourne already lacks a safe crossing at Keenan/Knightsbridge and no stop signs between Byron and Seville. The traffic should not be diverted to Sherbourne. This is not part of the present plan. Noted.
Thanks. It's the access to the site is something I want to continue to explore with the developer and with Steve. But stay tuned to the newsletter, and if we're proposing changes, we'll get back out to folks.
Perfect. And the only other question in the queue was from our earlier conversation about Redwood and access. So that goes exactly with what you just said, Jeff. I have nothing else in the queue, but I'll stall for a few minutes in case there's any other questions that you're thinking about. Just to reiterate, in case anyone came in, we'll throw this on YouTube. You can pass it along to anyone who missed it. There we go, 2 questions. Okay, 3 questions. Commenting again on the access issue. Access is the huge issue. The point is that some people are illegally cutting through and speeding down a quiet residential street. With LOT, everyone, etc., we need this to be addressed given the development. Will you consider traffic calming? I think we discussed this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's not within the scope of the site plan discussion to traffic calm the street, but that's a discussion I'm interested in having. I mean, we in the office we have a traffic calming budget, and then we allocate that according to the priorities that we develop through measuring the traffic and the volume of various different streets. So we have a plan right now. we have a list of streets that need to be traffic calm that's about 70 or 60 streets long at this point, and we will get traffic calming on them all. Let me take a look. The number of cars that this development is going to generate, I think Kiela has made the point that it doesn't even generate the requirement for additional study. It's a very small increase in the number of cars that will be using it, but I don't want to suggest that there isn't a problem on the street that doesn't need to be addressed, and that's something that that my office can pursue with our traffic calming budget.
Perfect. The last two are just comments. Thanks for an informative meeting. Thank you for coming and for your questions, Robert. And thanks for not building 27 stories high.
We get nervous with every single developer who calls our office. I'm like, what's coming down the pipe now? But this does fit within the existing zoning, which is why this is just a site plan application. But there are, your feedback is important as we work through the details of the development to see whether there are things that need to be tweaked. And I know Steve is listening to all of the comments.
Thank you for inviting me, Jeff, for this. I've worked with Mr. Tenants already. He's doing something similar across the street. On the other side of the ward. So so it was interesting to see this very similar stuff that's going on.
Which one?
We're talking just at Honeywell and Byron.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Same low-rise apartment buildings, and extra one's going to be put in there.
Nice.
Another well-received project.
Yep.
People like low and mid-rise.
Yes.
Yep.
There's a lesson there.
Big time, yes.
Yeah. It's going well.
Steve, did you just want to speak one more time to how people can provide you with their comments?
Yeah, so the circulation period ended this Friday, but you're welcome to provide comments. I'm still not, I still need to compile all the comments. But I would encourage you to do it within the following weeks. I will then, staff needs to closely look at the details of the site plan, the landscape plan, the engineering. So once we're satisfied with the approval, I will be preparing a report. It's a delegated authority to my manager. Subsequent to the approval by planning staff, our legal staff need to prepare a site plan agreement that needs to be entered into with the developer to ensure that the works are done as per the approved plan. So we're still not that early because the circulation period just ended. But in terms of putting forward a recommendation, we are still early. But I strongly encourage to provide me your comments if you want to send me written comments. Within the next 7 days, I would say, before the end of next week. You have my email address. I think Fiona published it, but it's easy. It's steve.gauthier, Gauthier with a TH, at ottawa.ca.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
It's in the chat.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Kayla, Jordan, I appreciate you showing us the project. Teresa, thank you very much for being here this evening. And Fiona, thank you as always for running our open house here. I don't even know how many of these you've done now. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.